I'm Chad. This is a pilot episode for a show that I'm going to be calling Okanagan Modified. The show is going to be about cars that are built at home, in home garages, in driveways. I'm going to be keeping it real, going to make mistakes, and that's what's going to be fun about this show, is it's going to be your average Joe who's not a mechanic, attempting things maybe that are a little bit bigger than them and learning along the way. I'm going to have to draw the line somewhere, so there's going to be times where I take things to machine shops and don't attempt things that need to be done by a professional. One of the cool things about this channel is going to be before and afters, and I also want to prove results. So I have a G-Tech Pro. It's an older model, but I can do quarter mile time, 0 to 60, horsepower and torque, things like that, braking, and we can take a look at what a car does and then how it's going to be after it's been modified, so we can have a really good comparison there. Of course, there's going to be ride-alongs and racing clips and visits to friends' garages and driveways to show what they're up to. I need to show you how I got to where I'm at with this car. So here's a little bit of a high school-like presentation. Hopefully it's not boring. Just for a few minutes so I can get you up to speed on how I got here before we can move on with a more live presentation. Here it is as purchased with a mismatched clean fender from a 1971 and lots of faded paint chips and rust. I bought this car on Kijiji. The car is a non-rally dash. It was a column shift automatic, and now it has a floor shift. If this was a truly matching numbers car, I would keep it all matching numbers. But when I found it, it was a mishmash of many different vehicles put into one. And that's what made it affordable for me to find and work on this car, and I can build it and drive it the way that I want. Just looking at paint that chipped off the roof. When I purchased the car, the power steering doesn't line up. As you can see, the pulley here doesn't line up with the other pulleys. So I'm driving around with manual steering. What I'm going to do is put power steering into this car. The problem is it's a big block steering pump assembly on a small block Mopar. As a performance-oriented person, I wasn't very interested in putting power steering in this car for the performance loss. My friends convinced me that it was totally worth doing, and I actually did it, and the power loss was not even noticeable, and the steering is fantastic. Before, I was two-handing on the wheels in parking lots and trying to parallel park the car. Now I can use two fingers on the wheel, and it's effortless driving like a modern car. I removed an 8 3/4 center section 741 case with the 276 open gear ratio. You can see open 276 on the gears. We've prepared a sure grip with the clutch, which is basically Dodge's version of a posi traction, and 391 gears. I took the doors off so I can change the hinge pins. Floors were in amazing shape, but I recoated them, put carpeting in. The factory never would have taken the time to mask clean lines like this for the seam sealer, but it's something I wanted to do, make it look really tight. I didn't rent a paint booth to paint the inside of the trunk, the door jambs, or the floor pan, and that's because it costs about $300 a day to rent a booth, and I was on a budget. Saw someone online did this really cool trick where they restored their emblems and they used model paint, so I did the same thing. Dollar store poster board works perfect for making templates. Patched it up piece at a time. I literally learned how to weld on this car. New bumper bolts are so cheap it's not worth fixing the old ones. Here you see Everglass filler over the weld seams. Got everything as straight as I could. New rear quarter panels, both sides. Stripped down to bare metal. My least favorite task, sanding the grills. Very tedious handwork. Lots of guide coating. Masking tape to help me maintain body lines. Find more little touch-ups to do. Paint booth time. Silver paint went on first, then the B5 blue base coat, and then clear coat. All that time and effort really paid off well. Normally I would like kinky stuff, but when it comes to exhaust, I'm not interested in it. Having those kinks is a restriction to flow, and it really hurts your sound. You should be able to find an exhaust shop that can do bends that aren't like this, and you can order a body exhaust from just about anywhere that's mandrel bent at a good price. So that's something that I wouldn't have on my cars. I accept no invitations when it comes to exhaust. I always put on Flowmasters. That's how come I have that beautiful sound. We can get into those mufflers in a different episode. I've got a set of Hooker long tube ceramic super competition headers on there. I go to an H pipe, 2.5-inch mandrel bent tubing, all the way to Flowmaster 40s and out the tips that are from PG Classic. These tailpipes, I got them from PG Classic. They look exactly like the 1970s originals from Chrysler. When I designed this exhaust, I wanted it to be as high flowing as possible. And the original Mopar ones, they actually neck down to 1 7/8 before you put them on. And these beauties are big bore. They don't actually neck down. They maintain the 2.5-inch mandrel bent tubing that I have underneath the car right out to the tailpipe. And that's one reason why I have really great sound, and I eliminated a bottleneck that was there from the factory, and I kept the original look, so I'm really happy about that. I'm going to do an episode on putting the bumblebee stripe back on the rear. I still have to put the chrome trim around the glass, and I'll probably do that in the episode in which I'm going to put the bumblebee stripe back on the tail. We're going to do an episode on upholstery, where you can see my seats. Now that you've survived my little slideshow, I'm going to show you, problems I have with the car. Basically, I got the car all painted up, ready to go. It was the first thing I did when I got this car, and I never really got to focus on a lot of mechanical things. I took it apart, one panel at a time, removed the rust, painted it, and you can see now, as I'm driving it on a regular basis, I'm starting to find little squawks with it. I want you to see is exhaust that comes out of my breather and out of my PCV valve when I pull it out of the valve cover. Right in here. Looking for 125 psi. Some seafoam, and I'm going to inject it straight into the spark plug holes and try to soak the piston. Hopefully it'll penetrate, get to the rings, and see if that has any effect. So I'm going to put it in all 8 cylinders, let it soak overnight, and then I'll try to run the car, and then I'll actually run a little bit through the intake as well. Hopefully give the valves a chance to clean up, maybe do something about that blow-by. Maybe I'll see a miracle here, maybe I won't, but I've only ever heard good things about this product, and we'll go from there, see if it actually works. And at this point it's a band-aid, it's not a real repair, and I realize that, but if it buys me more time to get out drag racing, cruising, just, all out enjoying this car while I'm building another engine, that would just be awesome. Okay, it's the next day. I've had the seafoam in overnight and I'm about to start it up. I'm expecting a lot of smoke because I've had so much chemical sitting in the cylinders. Let's see what happens. You can see there's a bit of smoke coming out, not a hell of a lot.
Just a compression test here.
That was an experiment to see if I gained anything from the seafoam. Did a compression test and I gained about 5 psi in the cylinder. So it did do something. It's obviously not going to fix an engine, but it's pretty cool that I put something in and I noticed a little bit of gain when I drive around. I still have a huge blow-by problem, but it's pretty cool. Seafoam actually did do something.
Another leak visible here.
You can see oil build up on my timing chain cover. To make the show interesting, and because I have a backup engine, I've been driving the car really hard so I can maybe catch some sort of catastrophe. And I did manage to catch one little clip where I overheated and the radiator cap did a fine job. Doesn't appear to have caused any damage, and the result was I blew a fuse on one of my electric fans, so I wasn't getting as good cooling on a really hot summer day. Have a look at this clip. I jumped out of the car as it was steaming out of the hood scoops and out the grill and out of the hood, and I ran in front and I did my best James Earl Jones impression from Star Wars, and I found myself saying, "You have failed me for the last time." The reasons why I'm saying this engine is done: I've got leaks that I've shown you in previous clips. I've got white clouds of exhaust, which indicates coolant is going through the engine, which is probably from the head gasket. I've got oil that accumulates on my timing chain cover. I've got smoke that comes out of my breather, likely a blow-by issue. I also have smoke that comes out of my PCV valve if I were to pull it out. I've got a serious loss of power. The car used to run 13.41 in the quarter mile. It slowed down to about 15.7, so that shows that I've got a considerable power loss. I've also got some pretty low compression numbers. I should be above 125 psi, and I'm nowhere near that. And the worst thing probably is when you drive this car, besides from it running hot, is that it smells really terrible. Your clothes will end up smelling like exhaust, and that's from all the fumes that are spewing out of this thing. So this engine is it's done. In the next episode, I'm going to be tearing this engine right apart. I'm calling it the autopsy. I hope you join me, and let's get dirty together.